Greetings, friends and followers. This is so. Today, what I wanted to talk about was government should be run like a business and not like a charity, as Donald Trump is showing. If you run government like a charity, then it creates massive fraud. Basically, it's tacit communism. In communism, it says, from those with greater ability to those with greater need. What it does is it creates a meritocracy of need. And we see this happening in society. It's like they talk about white privilege or whatever, but they don't talk about, like, I don't know, handicapped privilege or something like that. People that are in need are elevated in status. And the more needy they are, the more elevated they are. Now, there is legitimate needs. There are certain things that should be addressed. There shouldn't be children, starving. And there shouldn't be the elderly or disabled. But you can't have fraud. And it's interesting because atheists are so interested in the separation of church and state. But historically, and this is the way it should be today, it should be the churches and the religions that are doing the charity, not the state. Not the state. The state, the government, should be run like a business to create value for its citizens. And the state, the government, should not be giving money to Catholic charities to house illegal immigrants or to feed illegal immigrants or anything of the sort. I am not a fan of Catholic charities. They do some good things, maybe 50% of what they do is good, but they do a lot of bad things. And I think that the United States government and the Roman Catholic Church have an unholy alliance. There's a lot of good people in the Catholic Church. There's been a lot of bad popes recently. Current one, not a fan. There's a lot of good pastors. There's a lot of good lower-ranking Catholic leaders that speak out a lot of times openly against the papacy. So I thought that I got this idea from Will Durant a while back, and I credit it to Will Durant. But then when I researched it online, it turns out that nobody said it but me. So I'll say it again. It's my philosophical calculus that if the government doesn't create more value for you, then if it didn't exist, it doesn't have the right to rule. So the government under Trump is creating value for us. Now, I live in Oregon, so Tina Kotek is doing everything that she can to suffocate business, to prevent the positive stuff that Donald Trump is doing from trickling down to people like me. Which is why the only job that I have right now, even though I've been putting it out application after application, the only job that I have right now is door dashing. And I have to DoorDash just about every night in order to keep my head above water. And yeah, cashed in my 401k. It was only like, I don't know, $3,000 or something, and that's slowly running out. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So, based on my research, and Christians, you're going to want to hear this, based on my research, the origins of the Holy Trinity. Not going back to ancient Egypt and the 4 stations of the sun, but just going back to Pythagoras and the math cults in ancient Greece. There's a lot of similarities between Pythagoras and Jesus. They both had a philosophical family, and in the Apocrypha, there's a book that's basically the sayings of Jesus, right? These are the things, these sayings that Jesus always said. There's also the golden verses of Pythagoras. Now, what people don't know about Pythagoras, a very interesting person, is that he was basically the Western version of Confucius. And what he did was he sold his knowledge to city-states to help them perfect their politics. So, for the Pythagorean math cults, every mathematical formula was a way of pronouncing God's name. So, looking at the Pythagorean theorem, right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. The relationship that represents the Holy Trinity. So from the ancient perspective, the relationship between the father and the mother creates the child. And from their perspective, there were three types of authority: the authority of reason, the authority of mercy and charity, and the authority of punishment or physical violence. And this was something that was known back in ancient times, even in martial arts, Western martial arts, that the wisest people were supposed to wield the deadliest coercive authority. And the way this got reduced over time is that if you had the deadliest martial art, then you were the wisest, which was a perversion of the original concept. And Pythagoras oftentimes went around with a Greco-Roman wrestler who was undefeated. So the relationship between the father and the mother creates the child. The authority of reason already compensates for all of the mercy and charity that is deserved. But if the mother figure is corrupt, then she will offer mercy and charity where it isn't deserved, to usurp the authority of the father and turn the child against the father. And we see this is what's been going on for years with the Democrats, right? Democrats have managed to frame themselves as the good mommy, and they have managed to frame Republicans or conservatives as the bad daddy. So if you look at the statue of Themis, the Titaness of justice, she was not a goddess. She was the Titaness, which was before the gods. She's the Titaness of justice. She has the scales, and then she has a sword. She has a blindfold, and she wears the hymations, right, over the left shoulder, under the right, and oftentimes her right breast is exposed. What this means, what it symbolizes, is that mercy is for the righteous, not the sinister or left-handed. So the word economy comes from the Greek word oikos, which means house. And philosophically speaking, every act of theft or depreciation in a society of the money depreciates the value of all of the money in that economy proportionately. So in ancient Greece and Rome even, they had this concept of indentured servitude. And what this meant was sometimes a person would run into hard times and they couldn't pay for stuff. So they would basically sell themselves into slavery. in order to get to a point where they could be back on their feet. But basically what they had in those times is the person that was in charge of, was the patron of the indentured servant, was responsible for that person's actions and any expenses that they incurred. What Democrats have been doing is taking all of our taxpayer money and using it to fund things that we don't want, people that we don't want in the country. And here's the interesting thing. I earned my money. My money is an extension of my will. My money does my will. Do not use my money to do things that I do not want, okay? To support people that I don't like, that I don't want here, doing things that I don't like, okay? But, and this is what's sinister about Democrats. If you want those people here, then pay for them with your money, not our money. But these career politicians that have never been successful at business, they think that our money is their money, and they have no skin in the game. So if you're responsible for these people, you're spending your money that you earned to keep them here, and you are responsible for all of the crimes that they commit against citizens. That's right. Government does the will of the citizens, executes the will of the citizens. They do not force citizens to comply to the will of the politicians. So, if anything I have said here today has helped you out or shed any light, be sure to click like, share, discuss, follow, contribute if you can, and Merry Christmas.